Hey everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres, and obviously I'm in the studio. This is the medallion that I can't show you because it's a custom job. When I pop it, it's possible that I got a better mold this time because the mold was warmer. And it is, it's much better. So I'll peel off this junk around the edge, the flashing, that's what that's called. And I'll set this aside over here for later because I need to have a certain number of those ready to go the next time I sit down to do flasks, which is probably going to be later this afternoon. So this is what you do for hours and hours and hours to create all the pieces that you need for your shop. And I'm really fussy about this one because I really want it to work. There's Hercules again. Remember last time Hercules didn't work because these molds are still cold for being sitting here all overnight. And let's see if we did better this time around. Yep, we did better this time. The little loop at the top is intact. It's as thick as it should be. The rings around it are good. The design on the club itself is pretty darn perfect. There's one spot I may fix a little bit when I'm actually screwing it up. But I will save this guy and he'll go into one of the containers over here and he will be turned into metal later. So that's the process. And as you can see, there's a gazillion little molds here, and I do this until I have everything I need. So I am still missing one of my molds. I need to figure out what happened to that. But if we could look at something odd, let's see, this is a really long one that I have never been able to cast correctly. This is my ducky. This is one of my duckies. See, first of all, it tends to break apart because this thing is so fragile. But I'll peel off the wax here so you can see the ducky. He's very cute. I mean, he just looks like a duck. Ducks were magic to a lot of different ancient groups because they disappeared and they came back. And, you know, the migration thing was a pretty big deal. And that made them magic. Nobody understood migration. I mean, they understand the coming and going, but they don't understand anything. He's still got flashing around the edges, so I would have to clean him up. But he's a really cute little duck. And I have another style of duck here. I think it's this one. This is also obviously a duck when you look at it. But it's not like this guy is. Okay, now that we can hear ourselves think again. What's funny is that doesn't bother RUF at all. He doesn't bother them that it's noisy. He looks at it. The first time it ever went on, he looked at it. But he's not one of these dogs that freaks out at loud noises, which is a good thing. Anyway, two different kinds of duckies. Put them in front of something white so they show up. This guy's kind of a short, fat little guy sitting on the water, and this guy's got his neck up and he's stretching. But they're both considered to be ducks. And they were both the top of hairpins. So I got to work on that because I really want these guys to be ducks again. So this guy, I have the entire hairpin be about that much longer, a quarter inch longer. I think I can modify these duckies so that I can cast them and then solder them onto the top of silver pins. So that's on my list of thousands of things to do. But gives you an idea of some of the crazy stuff I do for my business. And I think that's it today, because I have a ton more of this to do. And I think I've shown you guys most of this process before. I don't know how much of this waxy stuff I've showed you. It's been a while. But I need to go over to my other wax bench and see if I can put some of these things into flasks so that we can cast again, hoping later this week. Henry's got a very important project underway in terms of some of my casting. It's a really complex design that he is trying to work out with a computer. And as with anything that you're learning new, it can be a bit of a challenge. It's not easy. And part of the idea was if he could get some of that sort of stuff done, it would take a little bit of the labor-intensive parts off of me, because you can actually 3D print some things and burn that out the same way as you would wax. And I've never done that. I know that there's a lot of companies that do that. A lot of the professional jewelry that's made out there in fancy stores and stuff like that is done that way. And I'm very confident that I know multiple people who are doing that in the reenactment community that I play with. But I haven't done that. I've always done everything by hand with waxes and molds and stuff like that, and carving this stuff by hand and all that sort of thing. And that's closer to the way it would have been originally done. But the problem is you have to make it affordable for people. And the more handwork you have to do, the higher the price has to be. So this kind of stuff where I'm doing waxes, it's not really a problem, because when I'm doing it sort of batch jobs like this, where I would sit there and do like a gazillion, I'll spend a couple of hours listening to music and making waxes, and then they get cast up. That's not a problem. That's pretty normal. But when I have to do a huge amount of carving and stuff, it becomes problematic, because it's more labor, and I'm trying to eliminate just a little bit of the labor. Here's another one that's cute. This is actually a Roman crescent. He's a very cute little guy. I cast him in both bronze and in sterling silver. And I'm sure I need to cast more of them for this next event. And I can't break that out with my fingernail. I need to use an X-Acto knife, and also let it cool a little bit. It breaks out easier when it's cool. But you can see the top of the crescent, and this part here will come out. This little pendant, very cute. So that's that. I will leave this guy here for now, and we will go over to the wax bench. We are now at my wax table. This is a table where I assemble flasks that are going to be eventually burned out and made into metal. So I have cabinets here that are full of waxes that have already been made. I have, these had just come in yesterday, so that's why it's so messy. These little guys are the bases, and they are where the wax is going to be attached. So here's some of the wax I brought in yesterday, and there's a Hercules club. We showed some of those being made yesterday. Some of these are in here because I actually need to make new molds. I've got a bunch of these Tudor buttons. It's just a little flashing on it, but take the flashing off. You can see it's a very nice little flower button. And the pie wedges in there, the petals, actually get enameled. So I have not had a chance to sort this yesterday. I did a bazillion hours of wax making. Just tossed it in here so that I could sort it later. And I've got all kinds of things. I've got pendants. That's a Slavic pendant that needs to have the extra flashing taken out. There's another button. Another button. These are some mounts, which is just decorative bits that are either sewn or riveted onto belts or pouches or whatever, clothes. This is a plain version here. It doesn't have anything in the center, but you could either enamel or put what they call paste, which is a fake gemstone in the center, and that would make it, you know, fancier, give you all the different colors. But I've got all kinds of stuff here like this. There's some more mounts. I was going to collect those together. Do I have should have a drawer for that? Some of them are over there because I'm in the process of filling them up more. And so let me show you how the basic principle works here, so that I can find enough of a particular design to be able to actually accomplish something. There's another one. That might be enough right there. Just these little mount guys. That would be a good project. It will make sense to people, I think. So, the reason I am sitting down this far is because you want to be working in a very ergonomic fashion. And if I was up high, then I'd be leaning over my bench, crunkled up. Very bad for your back. So, since I don't want to be crunkled up, I have this. These could be cleaner, but they're fine under the circumstances. I have two different kinds of wax here. This is a wax pen here. That end is very hot. Looks yucky. This has got burnt wax on it. And then I have this sticky wax back here. And what the sticky wax allows me to do is attach things quickly. Now, the first thing I do is I take my little cast piece and I clean off any flashing. Now, in this case, I'm just using my fingernail. You can use a tool like an X-Acto blade. If those holes weren't in there, I could straighten them out and make them. I can get in here like this and cut down the flashing off the inside here. Since I can't really get a finger in there, there's some flashing in that hole there. Clean that out with the end of the X-Acto blade. Same thing, flashing here. And I'll do that for every one of the pieces that I've cast. Sometimes this mold in particular turns out perfect. Just so happens this one didn't. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's good enough to cast nice pieces. I'll also look at the surface. I can see actually that this needs to be repaired if I'm going to have really nice pieces come out. So I'll show you how you repair something. You take your wax pen, which is hot, and you get a little bit of wax melted onto the end of it. And then I need to wear googles for this. This is a headpiece called an optivisor. It's got a flip down visor to it. You can get these in different magnifications. This is a 7x, which means 7 times. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some melted wax, and I've seen that by looking at this closely, I know what the surface should look like. And I can see that there are 2 spots on here that are not perfect. They have a little hole in them. And if I were to cast this without repairing that hole, it would have a hole in the final cast piece, and that's not something that's saleable. So sometimes you sell pieces that come out with a hole in them as seconds, but my preference is not to ever cast seconds. So I usually try and get in there and make sure there aren't any holes or anything else that's going to mess anything up. And sometimes that's easier said than done. You do screw up sometimes, but I really try and pay attention to the surface of this. I have a lot of little teeny shreddy bits of wax here that I can just pick up with the end of this pen. And I don't know if you can see that or not, but this now has these two shiny spots. That is where there was a piece of wax missing that would have made it look not good. So I fixed that. I'm going to go back in here again. I'm going to take another look to make sure everything else is right. And I'm going to decide that there is no hole in this one, so I needed to fix that and repair the surface. Now, I don't normally do this. I normally would, because this piece is capable of casting perfectly in wax, I normally would go literally toss this into the bin over here, and it would go back into the wax pot. I wouldn't normally take the time to do this. There are some pieces that do not cast perfectly. They are more difficult waxes to make, and those I will repair. But this is one that I normally would not repair, actually. But once I've got it good enough, I'm taking a little more flashing off. Attention to detail now means I get a nicer piece later. I'm not trying to clean off extra metal later, or finding that I've got pieces that are imperfect enough that I can't sell them. So I don't want to do that. So I'm doing a bunch of repair on this that I wouldn't normally do. Like I say, I would normally, if I had accidentally missed the fact that this was imperfect when I was doing the waxes, I would have caught it in my quality control here and said, no, I'm not going to do that. And not fixed it, just tossed it back into the wax pot. It remelts, nothing wasted, but I get a nice piece out of the deal. Because I'm showing how you can repair things. I'm just going in there and fixing anything that has any kind of holes or bumpiness to it that it shouldn't have. So that is now good enough. Now, these little guys are going to cast into little shiny stars, basically. I don't need all this extra stuff here. This extra sprue here is just a waste of metal and creates a risk that the piece will not cast correctly. So, there, I've chopped it off. This is my sticky wax. I'm dipping the bottom of that sprue in there, and then I'm sticking it here. The reason it's called sticky wax is because it's now stuck, and you can see it's sitting on that little base. Now I still have, the wax is still slightly flexible at this point, so I can scooch it around a little teeny tiny bit, but that's pretty close. So I'll repeat, you know, it's like wash, rinse, repeat. Yeah. Hate that noise. But it's one of the realities of working with a compressor in your shop.